In every great drama, there is a moment where fate takes two people from opposite worlds and throws them together in ways no one could have ever imagined. And this story is one of those unforgettable tales. A story where a poor student, burdened with struggles that most of us can hardly imagine, is suddenly forced into a life she never asked for. A life that would test her courage, her heart, and ultimately change her destiny forever. The drama begins with a young woman, a student whose life is defined by hardship. She is intelligent, ambitious, and filled with dreams, but poverty has shackled her every step. Her days are spent running between classes, part-time jobs, and sleepless nights of study. While other students enjoy social gatherings and expensive lifestyles, she barely survives. She cannot afford the luxury of fun, nor the comfort of rest. Yet, she carries herself with dignity, refusing to let the world see the weight of her silent suffering. And then enters the CEO, a man feared by his rivals, respected by his employees, and admired by society. He is wealthy beyond imagination, a man of power and influence. But behind his cold exterior and perfect reputation lies a secret and illness that threatens to destroy him, not just physically, but also emotionally. His empire, his power, even his future, all hang by a thread. Destiny weaves its strings in unexpected ways. By a twist of fate, this poor student and the powerful CEO cross paths. Not in the way of romance at first, not in the way of fairy tales, but in the harsh reality of desperation. The CEO, in search of relief from his mysterious condition, finds himself entangled with this young woman. She, with no power to refuse, is forced into a situation she neither understands nor desires. At first, their worlds clash. She sees him as arrogant, ruthless, and uncaring. He sees her as insignificant, just another pawn in his world of power. But life has a strange way of breaking walls. Day by day, circumstance forces them to interact, to share space, to fight, and to endure. Slowly, the cold exterior begins to crack, and beneath the CEO's hard shell, glimpses of vulnerability begin to show. Yet, fate has one more cruel surprise waiting. What started as a reluctant, forced connection turns into something deeper. Emotions sneak in silently, breaking barriers neither of them wanted to let down. But just as the first sparks of feeling start to emerge, a storm hits the shocking discovery that the young student is pregnant. Not just with one child, but with twins. This revelation changes everything. The poor student, already struggling with life's cruel challenges, is now faced with a reality that feels impossible. How can she carry this burden? How can she face society? How can she ever build a future for herself and her unborn children? The CEO, on the other hand, is shaken to his core. He, who once thought he was untouchable, now finds his carefully controlled life slipping through his fingers. For the first time, he feels fear not for his empire, not for his reputation, but for the woman who has unexpectedly become the center of his world, and for the children whose lives are tied to his own blood. It is in this moment where pride and power know longer matter that he makes the most unexpected decision of his life. He chooses to stand beside her, not out of duty, but out of something far stronger, an emotion he never believed he could feel. And so, against all odds, against the whispers of society and the judgment of those around him, the powerful CEO marries the poor student instantly. Not with grandeur, not with spectacle, but with a determination that shocks everyone who knows him. A man who once lived only for power now lives for love, for family, and for the woman who changed his destiny. Forever? But this is only the beginning. Because marriage is not the end of their struggles. It is the start of an even greater battle. A battle of trust, betrayal, sacrifice, and the test of love against a world determined to tear them apart. Asterisk marriage, in stories, often comes across as the happy ending. The moment where everything falls into place, where love conquers all. But in reality, especially in this story, it is not the end. It is the beginning of a long and complicated journey. For our poor student, stepping into the CEO's world is nothing short of terrifying. She moves from cramped apartments and worn-out notebooks to golden halls and glittering chandeliers. Everything around her screams of wealth and privilege, but instead of comfort, she feels like a stranger, an intruder in a world that does not welcome her. The whispers begin immediately. His employees, his business partners, even his family, all questioning the same thing. How could a man of his stature choose her? To them, she is unworthy. To them, she is a scandal. To them, she is simply an opportunist who trapped him with pregnancy. And while she carries herself with quiet dignity, their stares pierce her heart. She knows she does not belong here, and every step she takes in the CEO's mansion feels heavy, as though the walls themselves reject her presence. But the CEO, he is different now. Once a man of icy silence and ruthless decision-making, he now stands at her side. He shields her from the poisonous words, silences the rumors with his authority, and holds her hand in the moment she feels weakest. Even he, with all his power, cannot erase the insecurities that claw at her heart. Nights are the hardest. She lies awake, staring at the ceiling, her hands resting protectively on her stomach. Two lives grow within her, and with them, her fears. Multiply. Will she be a good mother? Will these children grow up loved, or will they face the cruelty of judgment because of her humble origins? The CEO notices her restlessness. At first, he does not know how to comfort her, but slowly he learns. He begins to speak, to share fragments of his own pain, the illness that has haunted him, the loneliness that comes with power, the endless parade of people who wanted his money but never his heart. For the first time, she realizes that beneath his arrogance is a man just as wounded as she is. And in those quiet nights, when the world is asleep, their bond deepens. Not in fiery passion, but in gentle understanding. Yet outside their private world, storms continue to brew. The CEO's rivals see this marriage as a weakness, a crack in his armor. They spread rumors, launch attacks on his business, and try to use his wife as leverage against him. Reporters stalk her, cameras flashing whenever she dares to step outside. Scandals are invented, lies are printed, and soon she becomes the headline of every newspaper. Her family, too, adds to the pain. Instead of support, they see her as their golden ticket, demanding money, favors, and connections. They do not see her struggles, her sleepless nights, or the pressure crushing her shoulders. They only see the CEO's wealth and demand a share. Of it got one evening, after a particularly cruel confrontation with his board of directors men, who openly suggested that she be removed from his life. The poor student breaks down. She tells the CEO that perhaps this was a mistake, that perhaps their worlds are too different, and that maybe he deserves someone of his own level. The CEO listens quietly. For a moment, she fears he might agree, but instead, he steps forward, takes her trembling hands in his, and says words that shake her to her very core. You are not my weakness. You are my strength. Before you, I was only surviving. With you, I am living. And if the world cannot see your worth, then let them be blind. I see you. And that is enough. Tears fall freely that night, but for the first time, they are not just tears of pain, they are tears of healing, but love alone cannot shield them from the storms of life. The pregnancy progresses, and with it comes health complications. The stress of her new life, the constant attacks from outsiders, and the emotional toll begin to affect her body. Doctors warn of risks, of dangers to her and the babies. She is advised to rest completely. The CEO, terrified of losing her, becomes overprotective. He cancels business trips, reduces his workload, and stays by her side. But in doing so, he begins to neglect his empire. Rivals seize the opportunity, businesses collapse, and soon his board begins to question his leadership. He is torn between two worlds: the empire he built with his blood and sweat, and the family he now cherishes more than his own life. And while he tries to balance both, cracks begin to show. Late one night, she overhears him on the phone, his voice heavy with frustration. If I lose this deal, I lose everything. But if I leave her side, I may lose her. How do I choose? Her heart shatters. She realizes the weight she has placed upon him, not by choice, but by circumstance. And in that moment, she makes a silent vow. She will not be the reason he loses everything he worked for. What she does next will shake the foundation of their relationship. Love is powerful, but love is also fragile. And when pressure mounts, even the strongest bonds can begin to tremble. The young wife, once just a poor student, begins to realize that her very presence may be tearing apart the life her husband built. His empire is shaking, his rivals are growing stronger, and the whispers against him grow louder every day. She knows he loves her. She feels it in every word, every gesture, but she also knows love is not enough to shield him from the relentless demands of his world. So, quietly, she makes a decision born not from weakness, but from love. One morning, before the CEO wakes, she writes him a letter. Her hands tremble as she places the words on paper, words heavy with sacrifice. I do not want to be the chain that drags you down. You gave me dignity, love, and a home when the world turned its back on me. But now, it is my turn to give something back to you: freedom. I will carry these children and raise them with love, but I will not let myself be the reason your empire falls. With quiet steps, she leaves. No goodbye, no tears, just silence. When the CEO wakes and finds her gone, rage and fear consume him. He searches everywhere: his mansion, the hospital, her family's home, but she has vanished like a shadow. For the first time, the man who always had control over everything feels utterly powerless. Meanwhile, the poor student, now carrying twins, takes refuge in a modest part of the city. She hides her identity, working small jobs, enduring loneliness, and struggling with her pregnancy. Every day is a battle, but she forces herself to endure, believing that by staying away she is protecting him. But destiny does not remain silent for long. Whispers spread in the CEO's world. His rivals discover her disappearance and use it too. Their advantage. They claim she abandoned him, that she was only after his money, that she left because she never loved him. These rumors cut deeper than any blade. But what wounds him most is not the words of others, it is the empty space where she once stood. And then, betrayal enters. Among his closest circle, there is someone who sees this chaos as an opportunity. A woman from his past, elegant, wealthy, and ambitious, steps forward. She offers him comfort, promises loyalty, and whispers in his ear, "She was never right for you. You belong with someone of your own class, someone who can stand beside you without shame." The CEO rejects her advances at first, but his loneliness, his exhaustion, and his heartbreak begin to cloud his judgment. For a moment, he almost believes her words. For a moment, he almost allows himself to imagine a life without the woman who abandoned him. But deep inside, he knows the truth. His heart does not beat for anyone else that far away. The poor student faces her own betrayal. Her family, who once demanded money and favors, now openly criticizes her for leaving the CEO. They see her as foolish, throwing away wealth and security for pride. They pressure her, manipulate her, and even try to use her pregnancy as leverage. To reconnect with the CEO behind her back, she feels trapped. Her sacrifice, meant to protect him, is now being twisted by those around her. Still, she remains silent, enduring the pain for the sake of her unborn children. But fate is never satisfied with silence. One night, as she returns from her small job, she collapses on the street. Her body, weakened by stress and lack of proper care, finally gives in. Strangers rush her to a nearby hospital, where doctors fight to stabilize her and save the twins. News travels quickly. The CEO, who has never stopped searching for her, receives a phone call that shatters him. She's in the hospital. It's serious. Without hesitation, he abandons everything: meetings, deals, even his empire, and rushes to her side. When he sees her lying pale and fragile in the hospital bed, tubes and machines surrounding her, his heart nearly breaks. He takes her hand, whispers her name, and begs her to wake. And in that fragile moment, when her eyes flutter open, tears stream down his face. All the anger, all the pride, all the misunderstandings melt away. There is only love, raw and undeniable. But as the doctors deliver their verdict, a new storm rises. The pregnancy is at risk. If she continues, she may not survive. The CEO faces an impossible choice: save the woman he loves, or risk everything for the children they created together. And she, hearing the same words, faces her own dilemma. Her heart tells her to endure, to bring life to her twins. But her eyes, gazing at the man who sacrificed everything to be at her side, whisper another truth. If her death breaks him, who will protect the children then? The tension between life and death, between sacrifice and survival, becomes the turning point of this story. And just when they think they are alone in this battle, betrayal strikes again. The ambitious woman from the CEO's past uses this crisis to her advantage. She manipulates the media, leaks false reports about the poor students, condition, and plants stories claiming the CEO is preparing to divorce her. The headlines explode. Shareholders panic. His rivals circle like vultures. And once again, their love is placed in the cruel spotlight of the world. But this time, the CEO does not falter. Standing before the cameras, before his enemies, and before society itself, he declares with unwavering voice, "She is my wife. She is the mother of my children. And she is the only woman I will ever stand beside. No power, no money, no empire will ever change that." The world listens. His rivals are stunned. His enemies retreat. And for the first time, the poor student sees not just a powerful man, but a man willing to burn down his empire for love. Asterisk, the hospital room becomes a battlefield, not of guns and soldiers, but of love, sacrifice, and survival. The doctors. Words echo in the CEO's mind like a curse. The pregnancy is risky. The mother may not survive. He paces the cold floor, his hands trembling, his usually sharp eyes clouded with fear. For a man who built an empire with confidence and control, he now feels powerless because this battle cannot be fought with money, power, or authority. Inside the hospital bed, the poor student lies weak but determined. Her hand gently rests on her swollen belly, feeling the tiny movements of the two lives she has carried with so much sacrifice. She knows the risks, but she also knows her heart. She cannot give up on them. These children are not just her blood, they are the proof of a love that defied all odds. The bond that tied her to the man who once seemed unreachable. When the CEO enters her room, his face pale with exhaustion, she sees the fear in his eyes. He takes her hand, presses it against his lips, and whispers, "Don't do this. I can't lose you. If I lose you, nothing else matters. Not the empire, not the power, not even me. Please, choose yourself." Tears pool in her eyes, but she shakes her head. Her voice, though weak, carries unshakable resolve. And if I choose only myself, who will choose them? Our children need me just as they need you. I will fight, no matter the cost. It is a moment of unbearable conflict love pulling in two directions, survival against sacrifice. But finally, the CEO, realizing he cannot force her decision, bows his head and makes a silent vow. If she is willing to risk her life, then he will stand beside her through every second of it. The day of labor arrives. The hospital is filled with tension. Outside, reporters swarm like vultures, hungry for scandal. Inside, the CEO paces the corridor like a caged lion, every second stretching into eternity. Screams echo from the delivery room, and each one cuts through his chest like a blade. His fists clench, his heart pounds, and his mind races with prayers he never thought he would make. Hours pass. And then finally, the sound he has been waiting for breaks through the silence. A cry, then another. Two tiny, powerful cries. The twins are born. The nurse emerges, her arms carrying two fragile miracles wrapped in soft blankets. "Congratulations," she says gently. "You have a son and a daughter." For a moment, the CEO is frozen. His heart, hardened by years of power and loneliness, melts completely as he holds them for the first time. His hands, used to signing billion-dollar contracts and commanding empires, now tremble as they cradle the most delicate treasures of his life. But his joy is incomplete. His eyes dart past the twins, searching for her. "And my wife? How is she?" The nurse hesitates. "She's weak, very weak. But she fought hard. She's unconscious, but alive." He nearly collapses with relief. With careful steps, he enters. Her room, machines beep steadily, her face pale but peaceful. He sits beside her, places the twins gently near her, and whispers, "You did it. You gave me everything I never knew I needed. You gave me life." Hours later, her eyes flutter open, weak but alive. And when she sees the twins in his arms, tears stream down her cheeks. She reaches out, and together, the three of them, husband, wife, children, form a picture more powerful than any empire. But the world outside is not silent. Scandals still swirl, rivals still plot, and society still judges. Yet now, the CEO is no longer shaken. With his family at his side, he stands before the cameras once again and declares not just his love, but his truth. "This woman, once called poor and unworthy, is the strongest person I have ever known. She risked her life for love, for family. For our children, wealth does not define worth. Power does not define dignity. Love does. And today, I stand not as a CEO, but as a husband and a father, and I will protect them with everything I have." His words spread like wildfire. Some scoff, Some admire, but none can deny the power of his conviction. His rivals, unable to shake him anymore, retreat. His empire stabilizes, not because of money or manipulation, but because of respect. 4. The first time, people see him not just as a cold businessman, but as a man of honor, willing to risk it all for love. For the poor student, now a mother, life transforms completely. She is no longer just a girl who struggled in silence. She becomes a symbol of resilience, a woman who endured judgment, sacrifice, and pain, yet never broke. Her strength, once unnoticed, now shines brighter than any jewel in the CEO's world. Days turn into months. The twins grow, filling their mansion not with the cold silence of wealth, but with laughter, cries, and love. The CEO, once chained to his empire, now spends his evenings on the floor, playing with blocks and toys, while his wife watches with quiet joy. But perhaps the most beautiful transformation is within them. He, who once lived only for ambition, now lives for love. She, who once felt unworthy, now knows her value. Together, they create not just a family, but a legacy far more powerful than money. A legacy of love born from struggle, sacrifice, and faith. And so, their story, which began with force, with misunderstanding, with hardship, ends not with despair, but with triumph. For sometimes destiny does not give us what we want. It gives us what we need. And in the most unexpected way, a poor student and a powerful CEO found not just each other, but a love strong enough to rewrite their fate.